Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist, and I want to talk to you today about something that I hope is helpful for you in relationships, and that's how to avoid an argument when you can feel that one is starting. You can feel that somebody is getting ready to enlist you in an actual conflict. You can tell maybe they're saying things or they're kind of poking you a little bit with some of their words. And you have the feeling your instinct kicks in and tells you if you're not careful, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get upset. So, I want to share a couple of things that you can do that can help you deal with these moments, these really inflammatory, incendiary moments. And it's funny, both of those words, inflammatory and incendiary, both are associated with fire starting. And that's the thing. That's how it can almost feel when you have an argument with somebody. It can feel like there is a fire. The temperature of the moment can feel that hot and uncomfortable. What we want to do is de escalate that moment so that an argument, a full blown argument, never takes place. In this video, I'm going to share two quotes. Both quotes I love. I actually collect quotes. I think quotes are incredibly helpful. If you can find a really good, helpful quote, it can actually help you deal with some moments that feel incredibly frustrating in your daily life. And actually, what we get from cognitive behavior therapy is the concept of self talk, the idea that we all have a sort of running inner dialogue in our mind. When something happens, we have a thought or a belief about it. And so self talk says, let's look at what we tell ourselves in a given moment, and let's try to make sure that our self talk, what we say to ourselves, is as positive as possible. Why? If we have positive thoughts, guess what that can more likely lead to? Positive feelings. All right. There is a cyclical element. We have thoughts, the thoughts impact our feelings, and vice versa. We can have feelings, and when we have certain feelings, we're more likely then to have certain thoughts, positive or negative. So, little quotes that you can use, they actually act like little self talk mantras that you can use to help you stabilize your mood, help you access a level head in a situation. Okay. Here is the first quote that we are going to use when we talk about how to prevent getting involved in an argument, how to resist someone enlisting us. Imagine sort of like a lasso, and somebody sort of lassos you into an argument, into a conflict, and this will help you prevent yourself from getting it. This will provide you an anchor. Sort of think about digging your heels in, and you're rooted and you're anchored, and you are not going to let yourself be swept up, swept away by somebody else's mood or attempt to get you into an argument. Here's the first quote: if you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later, you're going to get a haircut. Okay. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does that quote relate? And I'm going to explain it. But I do just have to say, it's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And I'll repeat it. If you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later, you're going to get a haircut. All right. I promise you're going to remember this, because the first time that I heard it, I have carried that quote with me for years, and I love it. And I use it in all sorts of contexts. What that means, how that quote relates to what we're talking about, how to avoid somebody pulling you into an argument, is that some people are simply more conflict prone than others. Some people are more okay with arguments and fights than others. So if you have someone in your life and you find that this person is really good at pulling you into arguments, what it means is they're used to this. They argue, they have conflicts just frequently. You've heard that expression, it's no sweat off their back. It's just kind of par for the course for them. Some people simply are really familiar with getting into situations that are arguments, and it may not upset them. as much as it might upset you. Why? They're used to it. It's just one of the things they do. They just frequently have arguments and conflicts with people. Here's the thing, not everybody likes to do that. I can share as an example myself. I am not somebody who loves getting into arguments. And I know that there are a lot of people that can relate to that. Why would somebody want to get in arguments? I believe arguments drain our energy. They drain our energy. And so often, arguments don't really produce any positive result. So often, arguments don't really change anything. So it's kind of like, well, what was the point of that? So, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later, you're going to get a haircut. Here is why I bring that up. When you are on the verge of getting into an argument with somebody, pause. Put yourself on notice that you are about to get into an argument. Picture a red and white octagon stop sign. If you do not stop, you are going to end up in that argument and more upset if you don't pause. So pause. Feel yourself getting frustrated. You can feel your central nervous system. Maybe the temperature in your body starts getting warmer. Some people may feel their face getting flushed. Maybe you feel some immediate tension in your shoulders. Maybe you even find your body language or your posture starts changing. These are all very natural things when somebody finds themselves getting into an argument. You pause. Now, after you pause, you have a couple decisions you can make. You can make the decision either to take a break and take a moment away, remove yourself from the environment and say, let me just take a minute and kind of compose myself so that I make sure that I don't say anything that's not helpful. Okay. That's one option to remove yourself. The other option is to stay in that pause and say something to let the other person know that you really don't want to have a conflict with them. And you can say it this way: I'm afraid this could turn into a conflict. And that's not something that's going to be helpful for either of us. So I want to pause a little longer here. You also are sort of buying time actually when you do this, because sometimes in these moments, everything happens so fast. And before you know it, you're upset and you're arguing and you're fighting. So this is a way of kind of pausing, communicating to the other person your intention, and also buying a little time. See, when you buy time, when you do this extension pause, what happens is you're not letting your body and your central nervous system get swept up into an alarm response. You're not allowing it. And that is better, because when you are in a more body state of calm, you will have a more level head and you will be able to make better decisions. Decisions where you think to yourself, I don't want to be upset in a half an hour. I don't want to be upset later this afternoon or tonight. So I'm pausing. This is what you say to yourself. You think to yourself, I'm pausing right now just a little longer, not saying anything else, because I need to pause and protect myself. I want to protect my mood. All right. Those are sort of two choices that you have: the extended pause and communication, and also just walking away, removing yourself from the situation. Why? Because of that quote. Because if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. So the point is, either one of those choices that you choose, the extended pause in that moment or removing yourself and walking away, both of those are healthy actions that you're taking. You're not just magically waiting for something to get better, for the problem to fix itself. Those are two different actions that you can take to try to make this better. And you know what? To maintain control over your feelings and your thoughts. You can't control what the other person is saying and doing, but you sure can control your reactions to it. And this is where you start to get a sense of peace, this sense of competence. I can hold on to myself in these moments. I don't get swept up or swept away easily. I don't give anyone the power to have that effect on me, to take away my internal anchor. That's sort of the way that you can talk to yourself through these moments. Now, this brings me to the second quote, another quote that I love. And first, I'll just share it. Never argue with someone who believes their own lies. Tell me that's not a great quote. Never argue with someone who believes their own lies. Now, a lot of times when you find somebody who is trying to enlist you into a conflict, a fight, an argument, a lot of times they are saying things, and what you're thinking to yourself is, but that's not true. That's not true. That's not fair. That's not right. You're wrong. And sometimes it can feel like such an insult, such an offense. How could they even say that? And so it's totally normal in those moments to try to prove them wrong, to show them how what they're saying isn't logical, is incorrect, is not factual. And so you might get swept up into the moment and into the conflict and into this aroused state of the central nervous system where it feels like there's a fight. You get swept up and you may find yourself working so hard to try to prove your case. But you know what? If what the other person is saying deep down in your heart of hearts you feel is wrong, incorrect, illogical, not factual, you can say to yourself, I don't ever argue with someone who believes their own lies. You don't have to do that. You do not have to get swept away. And you know what? In a given moment, any one of us can be tempted sometimes to tell ourselves things that aren't true, to want to believe our own lies, to maybe make ourselves feel better. It doesn't mean that somebody who's talking to you and you're thinking what they're saying is wrong, it's a lie, it's not correct. It doesn't mean that person is a bad person. What it means is in this moment, their perspective on it is not yours. And in this moment, you may not be able to reach a place of agreement. And that is why in those moments, you have choices. You have choices to extend pauses. You have choices to remove yourself from the situation. All right. I sure hope this has been helpful. You can also check out some of my other videos on my channel here, Dr. Seth, Psychologist.